Hello and welcome to the LFC Agenda, another World Cup edition after a thrilling and exciting knockout stages, especially the quarterfinals, which we're going to be looking at, as well as what looks like very tantalizing semi-final lineup, as well as the final coming up next week. I'm your host for this edition, Mr. Samage, and I'm joined by JWS,
Greetings.
and I'm also joined by Drew.
Hello and hi.
There we go. Thank you. Shout out to all our YouTube watchers and all our listeners. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we're not just talking LFC stuff. So if you want to share it with other football fans that, especially England football fans, but fans of all of football, please do share the podcast as well. We're going to get straight into it. We're recording after all the quarterfinals have happened. Especially the dramatic games last night of England versus Norway, where England won 2-1, as well as Argentina winning 3-1 against Switzerland. And we'll also touch briefly on the other quarterfinals from a couple of days ago. Spain's late dramatic win against, who did Spain play against? Belgium, wasn't it? Yes. As well as France's comfortable win against Morocco. So we'll definitely touch on those. We'll have a bit of a preview of the semi-finals as well and the final as well, and we'll get some predictions. I don't want any fence sitting today, so I want some strong predictions. We can clip those up. Someone in about a week's time is going to look absolutely fantastic. Some on my face, but we'll go with that. Yeah, sound gents.
Absolutely. I never fence
So
it.
I want to get straight into it.
Neither do I.
I know Argentina versus Switzerland was the most. I think there's a slight delay. I'm like the fourth official. I'm a bit of a delay on my end, but I think I'm back with you guys.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. So let's get straight into it. I want to talk about England, Norway, and Argentina, Switzerland. I've got a bit of a conspiracy theory hole I want to kind of go down when it comes to Argentina and some of the decisions that they've had at this World Cup. But obviously, the big game, certainly for probably the majority of our audience, was the England-Norway game. And I want to talk about the performance as well as Thomas Tuchel's comments as well. There's been a bit of a furore after the game and stuff. So I want to get into some of that. But JWS, starting with you, talk to me about the game. Where did you watch it? How were you feeling during it? And how was it for you?
We'll talk about the England game. Yeah, I watched it at a Riverside bar in Bristol, central Bristol.
Yeah,
it was quite. It wasn't like a football centric pub. It seemed like they don't really show football much because the screens were not like that great. They weren't positioned in the right place. But it means that I didn't have to have beers thrown on me when England scored. I loved it. It was great atmosphere. It's interesting that you saw. Obviously, despite what you see going on in this country, everyone was united, all races, all different kind of people, just united. Like literally, just like I did not see a single Norwegian fan. Like everyone was like united for England, and it's like literally when England scored the goal, like literally, it's just like joy. You don't ever get that. Not even at a royal wedding, So it was brilliant. I enjoyed it, and
yeah.
If you want me to talk about the football, I can pause on that.
No, brilliant. Thank you. And I think, I also went out to watch it at a pub in central London. I saw a couple of Norwegian shirts walking around central London, but definitely not too many. And like you said, there's that unifying factor when England are doing well. Like you said, it feels like, royal weddings, because, there's going to be a bank holiday, the sun shines out. So I think there's definitely a bit of that feeling. What about you, Drew? Where did you watch the game?
I watched it at home because I'd had a long day out in the sunshine and got back to lots of boring life admin. So I was pretty happy to be able to watch it in the comfort of my own home. And funnily enough, I was planning on going to bed straight after the game, not knowing that the Argentina Switzerland game was actually Sunday morning rather than Monday morning. Someone reminded me. So I was glad of that. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Well, I say enjoyed it, but I'm sure we get into detail of it. But as tense as it was compelling. And I guess as a neutral, all of the quarterfinals are that way, and you would have enjoyed it. I certainly did.
Interesting. Would you, because I know sometimes there's this whole thing, especially as ethnic minorities in this country, would you say you're neutral when it comes to watching England in the tournament, especially when it gets deep into the tournament, Drew?
I'm never neutral watching England. Always want England to win. Always want England to do well. And I always like
Yeah.
the feel
Okay.
good factor that follows a big England win. Outside of tournament football, I really couldn't care less because I just can't get into watching
Yes.
England when there's no high stakes. But there's something John was saying it there around people feeling united. I generally get that feeling when England go deep into tournaments, and it's going to be ratcheted up even more once we get to Wednesday. But yeah, I just love the edge of knockout games. I'm never on the fence. Definitely want England to do well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think let's get into some of the highlights of the game. So obviously, I think England in the first half seemed to play. I think they started quite well. Do you know what? It's really interesting because I don't know if you get the same. When you're watching it at home, you're probably always a lot more critical. But when you're out and about in the pub, I think maybe you're a bit more amped up because I thought England were quite decent in that first half. You could see what they were trying to do. There was a bit of a continuation from the Mexico game as well. Yeah, and I think as we've seen so much in this tournament, and I think we're seeing it more in the knockouts, that hydration break. Once the hydration break comes in, there's such a shift. So not too many clear chances to start with. Noni Madueke on the right wing. Okay, he wasn't good. I think we can agree on that. He didn't have a great game, and they kept looking for him as well. So there are a couple of times where the ball comes out to him. He's getting the ball, he's looking down the line, and he's offside, or he's not getting the final ball in. So what did you think, JWS, of the starting lineup, especially Noni Madueke at right back? That was one of the key changes, as well as Ezri Konsa had to play. Noni Madueke at right wing, and Ezri Konsa had to play right back. What was your thoughts on that starting lineup?
The right back situation I can understand because obviously it's dire straits, and Reece James cannot be trusted to do 90 minutes. He's not fit enough, so that'll be unfair, right? And I think he was probably going to, if you have starters and finishers, I think Reece James got to be pretty much be a finisher. So that made sense, right? We've done Noni Madueke. I actually feel sorry for him because he's being asked to do stuff that he's not capable of doing, as in not talent-wise, but consistency-wise. He's never been a consistent performer. He can look great one game and then rubbish the next game. So that's what I'm thinking is that from what we saw yesterday, I've seen that game many a time from Noni Madueke. We've all seen Chelsea.
Yeah.
That's his standard, isn't it?
Exactly. So, but then other games he can look like a world beater. So I just feel frustrated from me. Of course, he had a rubbish. He played rubbish yesterday, but I wasn't surprised. That wasn't even a surprise to anybody. It shouldn't have been anyway. So I don't understand the That to me.
Why is he playing?
Drew,
is it because Saka's dealing with this Achilles thing, or is it tactical?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask because what we're also seeing is Thomas Tuchel looked really frustrated with him at points, and they kept showing him on the side. You have to assume it's fitness related because obviously the only two right wingers he's taken are Saka and Madueke. Saka's come into the tournament clearly nursing something. He's knackered. He probably needs shutting down, as well as a few of the Arsenal players, which we'll talk about in a bit. It's just not fit enough to start a World Cup quarter final, let alone the games we've got going forward. So I think that's exactly the answer, Drew. And what alternative do you think Thomas Tuchel has, though? Because if Saka wasn't fit yesterday to start 90 minutes, is that going to change in the next 3 days?
So I believe my conclusion that I drew was Madueke isn't Thomas Tuchel's preferred solution. Duh. Like, he's just not very good, right? And actually, I don't know if you guys caught the Zlatan slander against Madueke. It was quite brutal. I mean, it was very creative. I have to say, first of all, he said that it looked like England has started with one guy less versus Norway at halftime. He was basically saying he should be hooked. And then he said,
it was very YouTube bantery, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then he was saying that because with one of England's goals, apparently it hit a cable and it went out of play. He said the cable did more than Madueke. So like the Madueke slide is like easy pickings, right? But I think if he's gonna maybe he needs to think outside the box the next game, because I don't think it's healthy for for Madueke to start again. He hasn't got good vibes, right? And you're going into the biggest game since, well, you could say since 2018, right, when they were in their last semi-final. But in terms of profile, maybe the biggest game since 1990 in a World Cup for England.
Is the World Cup, can I just quickly ask you, is the World Cup semi-final more important than the Euros Champions final of Euros?
Yeah, I'd have to say, because of the possibility of what you could win at the end, what's on offer.
Asking no.
Yeah, but I do feel it's not going to benefit the player, nor will it benefit Thomas Tuchel if he doesn't find a solution. I'm not going to say what that might be. If you're pushing me, maybe he can juggle around with likes of Eze. Maybe someone have to play out of position, but I just don't think it's healthy for him to continue. And particularly if Saka is able to do 45 minutes, I don't think it's going to be any worse than what we saw in that first half.
In addition to that, I would also say Noni Madueke wasn't the only one that underperformed yesterday. When the subs came on, when Eze came on, when Saka came on, they didn't look, they didn't really have much of an impact, if I'm being honest. So I think the reason why I think Tuchel was upset is that I'm just speculating, however, but I'd imagine he'd gone through the tactics in training. This is a game plan. That's your job. That's your job. That's your whatever. He's given them. He seemed like giving clear instructions, and none of it was being followed. Yeah. And I think, but you can. We're going to get in the comments in a minute. But that's kind of what I kind of thought. None of it was being followed, and I think it was across the board. Even when Jed Spencer actually had a good impact, but he clearly wasn't doing what he taught and trying to do. And that to me is like, that will be the worrying thing, that his message is not getting across. They're just kind of almost like playing on vibes. That's what it seems.
There's something about, you can't escape it, playing for England in big stakes, knowing that every single game that you play, if it's your last in a tournament, will become a permanent fixture in the psyche of the nation. It's going to be replayed over and over and over again. And this is something that all big nations have to deal with. And psychologically, I think there's a lot of players who struggle to carry that burden. And you're right, it's not just Madueke, but when you have 4, 5, 6 players, Harry Kane was pretty much anonymous, right? When you have so many players who are not fulfilling the jobs they've been asked to do, it becomes problematic, and it becomes like this weight that grows with the confidence stepping out of the England players. The confidence of the opposition builds, which is why England could have lost that game, right? And none of us would have been that surprised the way it turned out. It's just crossbar that saved them in the end, probably. But I think that psychologically he's going to have to get into them, and he's not got a lot of time, but that's the number one thing to fix. I'm not sitting here thinking they're bad players, but they didn't put in a great performance.
May I just say, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, but like, other nations have the same pressure, and sometimes these are nations that have actually won the World Cup multiple times, in recent memories even. So that's the thing. So, and on top of that, I do also feel that some players get more criticism for bad performance than others. Like Declan, Harry Kane, they can get John Stones had a few moments. I'm thinking, what are you doing, bro? And it could have gone either way, like dilly-dallying in the box. But also
Pickford.
I was gonna say Pickford. Pickford is one that
I'm gonna come on to Pickford for sure. My goodness.
Yeah, Pickford is another one. I'm thinking, like, do you know what? If I'm Argentina and Messi and them, I'm looking, do you know what? We're targeting this guy because we're the one that we know he's guaranteed to play, right? So we can target this guy, crosses into the box. Trust me, because he's mental. He's good. He's not terrible, but he's mental and he can be got at. That's what I think.
The mentality thing. Sorry, Sam. Just to finish off my point.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's exclusively an English thing, but I'm saying it's persistently an English thing. So there are countries not qualified. Hello, Italy, you've not seen for a while. And then you've got Germans who have gone home. Even if you look at how Argentina have been against likes of Cape Verde, Switzerland yesterday, they've not been convincing in the last 3 games. It's only moments of magic that got them out of a big hole. Egypt,